Hello, my name is Richard Averitt. I am a father, entrepreneur, and landowner from Nelson County, Virginia. And for about the last 25 minutes, you've been hearing about the specific policy issues related to the Natural Gas Act, eminent domain, and FERC. And I want to help you understand what it's like to be a landowner, an American citizen, at the other end of one of these government takings. And I'm just going to tell you one story about one family. But I want you to recognize that on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and Mountain Valley Pipeline alone, there are more than 2,000 families with stories just as important and powerful as mine. And in fact, on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which is approximately 600 miles long, fully 576.4 miles of the pipeline, 95% is on private land. I mean, this is eminent domain abuse at a completely unprecedented scale. So this is my family. It's my wife, Jill. She's a painter and a potter. Next is my son, Quinn. He's 18. He's just gone off to study biotechnology at Penn State. And there's my daughter, Savannah. She's 15 and a half. She's about to go to Argentina for a semester as an exchange student. She goes to Nelson County Public High School. This is where we live. This is the Rockfish Valley. It is truly one of the most beautiful places in the world. If you have not been there, you've got to go. I snapped this picture as I went out for a morning run in July. This is our home. My wife and I both come from a fine arts background, and so we spent many years designing our dream home and then building it here in Nelson County, expecting to live out all the rest of our life here. You can see how much attention we put into the little details that make it ours. This is my sister. She is why we are here. In 1988, my sister was infected with HIV when she was date raped by a male model. And by the year 2000 or 2001, as the treatment regimens were becoming much better and the drugs much more promising, she could actually consider the possibility of having her own children that would be HIV negative. And she and I began talking about the fact that we just don't know what life has for her. We don't know how long she would be with us. And so we decided to move together and raise our kids next to each other for two reasons. One, so that we would have as much time together as possible. And two, so that our families would be so inextricably entwined that no matter what life handed us, we would be ready for it to support one another. And 15 years later, this is the result, because not only did my sister and I move there, but my wife's sister and her family moved there as well. And we all split up a piece of property into 3 parcels and built homes and raised these kids next to each other. And what you don't see in this picture, coming down the middle ridge in this photograph, is a 125-foot wide scar that would be the Atlantic Coast Pipeline racing towards this family homestead. Let me introduce you to this guy. This is my dad. He's a retired colonel in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. In Vietnam, he flew rescue helicopters. He would fly in every day over and over to the front lines, pick up wounded soldiers, and fly them out to medical tents to save their lives. I feel incredibly blessed that he made it through that war. He lost his 3 best friends in his first tour. And I show you him because in 2012, as he and my mom were considering retirement, they decided that they too wanted to build a cabin on this property so they could be close to all those grandkids I just showed you pictures about. And they've done it. And now, in the waning years of their life, in their retirement, the government that he fought so hard to protect and support wants to reward him by taking his land and giving it to a private corporation for their shareholder gain. This is not what eminent domain was built for. This is not the country he raised me in. I want to switch for a minute to talk about jobs, because that's the other part of our family story. And I just want to highlight something here. Every time I hear our governor or our representatives talk about how these pipelines are job creators, I just want to throw up in my mouth, because that is complete garbage. Pipelines do not create jobs. People create jobs. Pipelines typically kill jobs, actually, in the long run. So look, I'm a pretty insignificant entrepreneur, to tell you the truth. But in my life, I've built more than 11 companies. I have created several hundred jobs and employed thousands of people. Some of these companies have been in business more than 20 years. And in this particular pipeline case, I was working on a project I'm going to tell you about that the pipeline would crush. And by itself, on our one parcel, it would create more jobs than the entire Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So this is the Kite Festival. It happens in our county, right behind Bold Rock Cidery, between my house and the property I'm going to show you. And in 2013, John Washburn, who built Bold Rock Cidery, called me and said, Richard, the property across the street is coming up for sale, and I know for a long time you've had a dream of building a boutique resort here that would give people a destination in Nelson County so they could come fall in love with this place the same way we have. And he said, you should check it out. And I did. And my dad and I bought this 100-acre parcel together and began working hard because one of the defining characteristics of this is this stunning creek called Spruce Creek. It runs the full length of the property. It is one of those few rare spring-fed natural streams that still harbors native brook trout. Oh, and by the way, that red band you see, that is precisely the location of the center line of the planned Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So, in 2014, before we knew about any of that, we began designing what has become the Spruce Creek Resort and Market development. It would be a $35 million project on about 100 acres with 2 restaurants, a wedding venue, multiple cabins, a truly remarkable, beautiful place designed specifically to bring people to our community and help them celebrate all the things we love about it. And then this happened. In 2015, we got letters both for our commercial property and for our family homestead saying that Dominion Energy wanted to come out for a pre-condemnation survey. And we said, what the hell is that? And I'll tell you what that is. After 4 years of work now, a pre-condemnation survey is Dominion Energy saying, we're coming to your property, whether you like it or not. We're going to evaluate whether or not we want to build a pipeline through it. And if we decide we do, there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, and by the way, we'll decide what is fair and just compensation for the land we take from you. And if you don't like what the price is that we want to give you, we'll take it in the end by the use of force anyway. So when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission publishes in their own documents, their own environmental impact statement, that eminent domain should only be used as a last resort, I call crap. That's complete and utter crap. The fact is, when the pipeline company sends you a letter saying they're coming for a pre-condemnation survey, they have told you right up front, you don't get a choice in any part of this process. And so what happens to most landowners is they're afraid and they're intimidated and they end up negotiating for what little bit they can, not because they support the project, but because they don't see any way out. Eminent domain is used in every pipeline case from the moment they open the conversation. And this is not what eminent domain was designed for. Sure, eminent domain has a place in our society. When maybe we want to build a hospital or a road or a school. But it's an extraordinary power of the government. It should never be delegated to a private entity, and the value of the asset should never transfer from one private individual to another, from one corporation to another. It should only be in the public need and into the public trust. So in our case, here's the property. This is what the path of the pipeline would do for us. It would completely wipe out the tree houses and the spa part of our project, right through the dead center. Oh, and by the way, they believe fair and just compensation for that? $13,180. This is our family homestead, aerial view. The house on the top is my sister's. Mine is the one down below. That yellow line you see is the permanent right-of-way of the pipeline. What you need to recognize is that needs to be pretty much tripled in width in order to compensate for the clear cut that they will do. So on my sister's property, this comes within 150 feet or so of her house. But just by virtue of our property lines, technically, I have no claim against the pipeline for the diminished value in my house, because the pipeline doesn't actually touch my property line, even though it's within just a few hundred feet. Oh, and by the way, everything you see in this red, that's what's called the incineration zone. So if this pipeline were ever to explode, everything in that area would simply be vaporized. And this is what it would look like when I walk out my front door, or when I go over to my Spruce Creek project. This is a recent clear cut by Atlantic Coast Pipeline up near Wintergreen. We have spent 4 years of our life fighting this fight. We have spent thousands and thousands of hours, many tens of thousands of dollars, with incredible stress on our family. But I'm here to tell you today, we will not quit. We are here all the way through. If we have to take this to the Supreme Court, we'll do everything in our power to get there. And what we're here to talk to you about today, our representatives and legislators, is that we need you to fix the laws that make this possible. Just because it's legal doesn't make it right. Property rights are the foundation of our American democracy. Our own words of Thomas Jefferson, the defense of private property is the standard by which every provision of law, past and present, shall be judged. This is why we fight for these guys and for these kids. This is all the kids in the neighborhood in front of us, every one of which would live in the blast zone. You see, we've done all the things we're supposed to do as citizens to build a dream future for these kids. And we need your help to make sure they get to have it. Thank you.